Welcome to the In Between podcast. I am your host, Aaron Simpson, and this is the beginning of a brand new day. Yes, we rebranded the pod again, and I promise you, this is the final thing. I want to get right into this, and I don't want to waste any time. I don't want to pull any punches. I want to get straight to it. Why the rebrand? Why the name change from Done Not Perfect to the In Between? The reason is because, simple. For the longest time, I've always felt I lived this life where I was towing this line in between who I wanted to be and who I currently was. I never felt like I could be my full self, like show all of me. Now, granted, some things are just reserved for me, as are things should be just reserved for you. But there was a long time, I'm talking about up until recently, where it felt very unnatural to be me. And I felt I had to be a part of me, show some of me, show the good stuff, the highs, but keep everything else like on the low. And I felt it was robbing not just my authenticity, but also my joy, my passion. Because I think a part of impact, however you want to describe it, a part of purpose is leading with pain. Because if you're going to go through things, why not use it to your benefit? And I felt that I only wanted to show the good stuff, I only wanted to show what was working. I never really wanted to talk about, or I should say, I wanted to talk about it, but I felt like I couldn't. And over the last half decade, when it comes to social media, the podcast, etc., I felt I was showing a part of myself when I've been yearning to show more of myself. I've been yearning to talk about more things. And I felt that I kind of hit this ceiling where there was only so much I could talk about when it comes to my faith or positive things or positivity or encouraging words, which are great. And that's a part of me. But there are also things that I enjoy to talk about or things that I wanted to do that I felt I was kind of putting myself in a box. Have you ever felt like you've been in a box? And there's nothing worse than being in a box that you put yourself in. And I got tired of it. And my content didn't feel as aligned as I wanted it to be. My work didn't quite feel aligned as I wanted it to be. And I couldn't really figure out what it was until I realized it's like, dude, you're just not being yourself. And you're being you, like you're not faking anything, but you're also not being all the way real. You're not showing all of your scars. You're not showing all of your interests. You're not showing all of your knowledge and the wisdom that you have. You're qualified to talk about other things other than personal development and faith. You're qualified to talk about culture. You're qualified to talk about ideas about business or ideas about relationships or, pop culture. Because one of the things that I have always been good at since I can remember as a kid is I've always naturally took complicated information, tough things to talk about, and I can pair it with pop culture ideas to make it more understandable and digestible for people, but also put it in a way that's practical to take action on it. I've always been able to do that. I can talk about something and know who I'm talking to, and I can say, well, it's kind of like in the movie this, or it's kind of like when I think about this song, or, I remember when I was watching Jordan play, or however it is, I can take things. I just have this ability that God just downloads these things into my brain where I can just pull it out and know when to use it at the right time. And I think that's what makes me very good at what I do in terms of a coach is I can take things that the general population can understand and break it down where the highest of level CEO can get it, and the person that is just trying to get by can get it. I've always been able to do that very well. And when it came to like content and podcasting, I felt like I couldn't show all of that as much as I wanted to. And now the in between represents for me the in between space of navigating who you've been while also shooting for who you want to be in that middle ground. Unknown, uncertain, the place where faith has to take place, but also the place where you have to do something in order to get something. The waiting and the sitting and the hoping and the expecting things to just unfold on their own, like that uncomfortable space, that's the place that I'm talking about. It's the in-between of the old you and the new you and middle ground where it's easy to go one way or the other. The in-between also represents being in between culture and character, right? Like looking at what's going on in the world and extrapolating themes from culture. And what does this mean for our character? Like, how can we learn from this, right? What is this person or this thing? What can it teach us? How can we apply that to our everyday life? And so the In-Between podcast is a place where we're going to recognize where you are. We are going to shoot for where you want to be and who you want to be, but we're speaking to that middle ground. We're speaking to that place, the place where you're on the right path, but at any given moment you can go off. You're on that path of being who God has called you to be, but that old you is calling, right? Those old habits, those old ways of thinking, the behaviors, the beliefs, they're gnawing at you. They're pulling at you. And that's what I want this podcast to be about. More me, more of my thoughts, more of my beliefs when it comes to certain things, and applying it to culture for you to understand and making it fun and making it interesting. And I also think it gives me, even just like knowing that this is what I'm doing, it makes me feel like I have more creative control, that I'm not bound by a system, or I'm not bound by a category. And I want to close with this because this is a shorter episode that's really just talking about the direction of the podcast moving forward. There's always been this talk about finding your niche. And I really want you to lean in on this because this means so damn much to me that if you can really get this into your spirit, I really do believe it could set you free. There has been talk for a long period of time of finding your niche, finding your lane. And I've spent tireless amount of hours, months, and years trying to uncover what my niche is. Who am I, right? What is the thing I'm supposed to do? And I tried this thing and I tried this thing and this thing worked out and then it didn't. And then it's like, well, let me try this. And then it doesn't work. And then I don't feel a certain way. And it's, I kind of feel like, man, like maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this. And you start looking at other people and people are telling you things. You're like, oh, you should do this. Like you'd be so good doing that. And you're in like this information overload. Can you relate to that? Can you relate to being in a place where you think you should be doing one thing because you're trying to find your thing? Like, what's the thing you should be doing? But what I've come to realize in this in-between is there is no niche for me. I'm the niche. I'm the niche. I don't need to find something that's already been established. I'm a one of one. There's no one, past, present, or future, that's going to have an experience like mine. There's no one, past, present, or future, that can speak like me or can break things down the way that I can't communicate the way that I can. I'm the niche. And it reminds me of the story that Dwayne Johnson said. And he said, when he first broke into Hollywood, he was so consumed, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically, he was so consumed with being liked and being accepted as an actor that he believed he had to just call himself Dwayne Johnson. Get rid of wrestling, get rid of the weights, get leaner, get smaller, be more digestible for people because you don't want to be too big. And he did all these movies, and some of them were good, some of them were successful, but a lot of them weren't. And it got to the point where he was feeling disconnected from his work. And the reason why he was being disconnected and feeling disconnected is because he wasn't being him. He was trying to fit the Hollywood mold. But once he said, forget that, I'm going to be me. I'm not going to not talk about wrestling because that's in my blood. I'm not going to not work out because that's who I am. And if you don't want to represent me with that, then we're done. So he fired his agency, signed with a completely different one. They doubled down on being The Rock. And the next thing you know, he does this movie called Faster. Then it leads to Fast Five. And the next thing you know, he becomes the biggest star in the world because he was being him. So he didn't try to fit the niche of Hollywood. Hollywood fit the niche of The Rock. And that's what this podcast is about. It's speaking to that place of the in-between where you know there's more for you, but you're kind of in this holding ground of letting go of what used to be while also trying to grab what can be. And if that's where you are right now in your life, this is the safe space for you, and I'm glad you're here. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, welcome to your in-between.